Today my guest is Emily Liles. Emily is a Grand Prairie School Board trustee for Place 6. Emily and I talk about a wide variety of topics today, including the role of a school board trustee and how she came to run for a seat, the evolution of GPISD over the last decade, and the importance of districts to keep up with the needs of the community to graduate educated and trained students for tomorrow. We also discuss many of the options for students in GPISD and how the campuses have grown and changed to adapt. If it's been a while since you've graduated or have had kids in the district, you'll be pleasantly surprised at some of the incredible things this district is doing. And now, here's Emily Liles. Hello, Emily.
Hi.
I'm so glad to sit down with you and talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so funny because we've been Facebook friends, and we've met each other face-to-face once. Mm-hmm. But we've never actually had a face-to-face conversation.
I know. Right? That's the beauty of social media. I think you're friends with a lot of people that you really don't know.
No, I know. It's so funny. When I knew the second that you ran that you were a very energetic person like I was, and I was like, I think we'll get along pretty well.
Yeah. When you have a vested interest in something, and it's something that you enjoy doing, you have passion about it, right?
Uh-huh.
So this is one of those things for me.
Yeah. So tell us, okay, so first of all, you are a Grand Prairie ISD School Board trustee.
Yes, ma'am.
What place are you in?
I'm in District 6.
District 6, okay. So tell me a little bit about, are you from Grand Prairie?
I'm not. I actually grew up in a little bitty town in West Texas.
Which one?
Called Monahans.
Oh.
Yes, we are known for our sand hills. It is a state park there. That's about it. Because it is. When I was there was about 8,000 people. I graduated with about 82, 85 people. Probably 82 to 85. I can't really remember the number, but it was under 100.
Wow.
So it's very small. I then went to Texas Tech to college, and that's where I met Scott.
You did? I went to Texas Tech.
I did.
I did not graduate, but
that's
I did go there.
We went to school there, and then in 2000 moved back here.
Wait, when did you go to?
I was out there from 95 to 2000.
I went there in 98.
How crazy is
Isn't that?
We probably crossed paths and didn't even know it.
Yeah, but Tech did not have 82 people graduating from it, so I'm sure
No. There's a lot more people there. So I met Scott, who was from Grand Prairie. We moved back to the Metroplex, not to Grand Prairie right away. We lived up in North Dallas and both worked. And then when it was time to start a family, he said, let's go to Grand Prairie. And I'll be honest, I was hesitant at first. I liked where we were. I was a small town girl living in a big city. It was fun. But once we got here and I learned about all the amazing things, Grand Prairie has that small town feel, which I fell in love with. And so it was a no-brainer, and we have been here ever since. Golly, we're going on almost 20 years.
Wow.
So that's how we ended up here.
Yeah.
And
that's amazing. So, what was your biggest, when you moved here from a small town, what was the biggest culture shock for you?
Probably, I don't know that I really had a culture shock until my kids started school.
Really?
Because my whole high school was only 500 people, but my daughter went to kindergarten in a school that was that many kids. And so I think that's where it was a shock to me. Okay, I'm not used to. I felt like I was dropping her off in another city instead of at a school, but I got myself involved, and I knew that I was gonna volunteer. I was gonna, people were gonna know that I was Briley's mom or Addie's mom, and I think that helped, and that started my love for the district and wanting to serve, which then eventually led me here. So
yeah. So when did they start school?
Briley started kindergarten in, oh gosh, you're gonna have me do dates. Probably 2009.
Oh, okay.
She's a junior in high school now. At South, and then I have an 8th grader at Reagan.
So things have changed a lot just since that time in the district.
Tremendously.
Yeah.
Tremendously. Just even the south side of town has changed.
Oh my gosh,
so much
yes.
Since they've been in.
Absolutely.
So we've seen it grow. We've seen it grow. We've seen a lot of good things come. When we first started school, there was no choice program. Now look at all the choice programs.
Oh, wow.
So
it's that new.
It is. It really is. Garner was just a normal, elementary. And when I say normal, just traditional. And it was not that long after Briley started, or maybe right before that whole conversation started happening of their enrollment had declined. Of course, we had a lot of elementaries around. And so it was, what were they going to do? And the parents and the teachers got together and brought this great idea of, let's turn it into a fine arts academy. And they brought it to the district. I remember talking to teachers who we were friends with, that said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Could you support something like this? Because I didn't live in the neighborhood where Garner is, but I run across from it. It's very close to me. And Addie actually ended up going there, her 3rd through 5th grade. We moved her over there for that program. But it was exciting because it was something new. I think there was some hesitation, and is this really going to work? Are we going to have enough interest? But they were gung ho. I mean, they were serious about it, and so they brought it to the district. And I wasn't on the board then, but things happened, and then we have it. And now it went from a campus that was barely hanging on with students to being our biggest elementary campus in the district.
For somebody my age that has been through, GPISD since I was a kid. I mean, my mom was a teacher in the district. My dad was an assistant principal. And then I was a student since the second I started. Garner was always, we always heard about Garner. And it was kind of surprising to me to hear that it was not struggling, but kind of struggling. And then now it is what it is. So you kind of take for granted that it kind of went through a cycle, Right. And, but that's just so interesting. But to start with, so what made you, well, first of all, how long have you been a trustee now?
This is my 2nd year. So in May, I will be completing my 2nd full year.
Gotcha. And then how long are y'all's terms?
We have 3-year terms.
3-year terms.
Yep. So next year I'll be on my election cycle.
Gotcha. And what made you want to run, what made you want to do that and be a school board trustee?
I think in the back of my mind, I always knew I wanted to eventually get here or try to get here to serve in a bigger capacity than what I was serving in the schools. And I went from, elementary volunteer to being on PTAs at all levels and all positions to serving on some district committees, the Future Forward Committee, which was one that we were looking at. Now that we were here with all this choice, where did we want to see things go from here? What did we want to do? And I think it was in that moment that I really thought, you know what, I want to be part of these decisions on a bigger scale. And I think there were some things going on in the district that I didn't necessarily agree with, if I'm really honest. Not that it was bad. I think the district is great. I think great things have happened here. But there were some things that I was seeing being done that I didn't really agree with, and I thought, okay, I'm going to get involved in this.
Yeah.
And so the person who was my district trustee just so happened to decide not to run and reached out and said, hey, I know you've been wanting to do this. I'm not going to run. Now's your chance. And it all worked out, and I'm thankful for it because I'm grateful to get to serve every single day. And it's been eye-opening. It really is. I think there's a perception of what we do that's different from what we actually do.
Yes, that would be very correct. I think that's very true, and and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing some of this podcasting stuff. I really want people to understand how their local city government works, and and Steve Pryor, who was before you, spoke so highly of you, and I always have respected Steve a great deal. He's been a guest on the podcast.
Yes.
And so when that's how I came to know you, was through him. And he's a great mentor because that man, I tell you, I think that he had more hours of education as a school board trustee than anybody I've seen.
He did, and I have fallen in his footsteps.
Have you?
Yeah, I was just talking about that the other day because I tend to, any opportunity I get for earning extra credit anywhere in training, I take. And there's a lot of stuff that's just, it's easy access now that it's all virtual.
Right.
You just sit down for an hour and you do it. So I appreciate that.
That's a great point, actually. So I guess to start with, when it comes to just the basics, for one thing, school board trustees do have to go through education, and you do take classes on how to be a school board trustee, and you learn about finance, and you learn about all these things. And
Not necessarily.
Correct. No, y'all don't?
No. So when you are elected, there is nothing that says you've got to do this. You go through what's called a Region 10. We sit in Region 10. You do a Region 10 training, which gives you a quick overview. It does not do a deep dive into anything. And for me, I had Dr. Hull bring me in, and we had about a 3-hour training session with her where she went over district related stuff. But again, kind of an overview. It's not really a deep dive. It's more of a let's get to know each other. What do you want? Let me show you kind of how things work in our district. And then as far as Grand Prairie does, we got the opportunity to go to CRSS training, which is out in Santa Fe. It's a great 4-day immersive training on governance. And I don't know if all trustees have done that. I know several have. That was probably the best training for me. And so then it's up to the trustee. It's up to the trustee to continue deep diving into things. Some do, some don't. We are required to have 9 hours of training each year. So, and those get reported in board meetings. But again, it's up to the trustee to do it. I don't necessarily know. I think it's frowned upon if you don't, but I don't think anything happens if you don't. You know?
I think that people would be surprised if they looked in the whole state of Texas at how many hours of training a lot of the school board trustees might have in certain areas. But Steve has like 200 and something hours. It's and there's all kinds of things that you have to understand. And being a school board trustee is, well, first of all, what does it mean to be a trustee?
Well, for me, we're entrusted with making sure tax dollars are spent correctly by overseeing the budget. A gentleman once told me, there's a perception out there that constituents elect you and that you should listen to everything they say and that's what you do. When in reality, those people collectively said, we trust this person to represent our best interest in that seat. So they entrust us to make the best decisions for the district, right? And so we do our main 3 jobs: hire and fire a superintendent, we set the tax rate, and then we oversee the budget. Those are our 3 big things that we do. And those 3 are a lot. Now, you don't get the opportunity to hire and fire a superintendent very often. Unfortunately, we were in the position where we did. I did that my first year. Some trustees never get to do that ever. But the tax rate and the budget happens every year.
Right.
And so those things are most important because you are dealing with the taxpayers' money.
Right.
So I think there's a perception that maybe we know the day-to-day, and we don't.
Right.
That's why we hire a superintendent.
Right.
We charge her with running a district.
Right.
And her job is to see the day-to-day operations.
Right.
And then let us know the bigger picture for board meetings, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's not, we don't have our finger,
right,
on her going, okay, tell me what you did today. What did you do today? We don't know that.
You don't come to the Ed Center and spend 8 hours a day in an office.
No.
And, as a real estate agent, we talk a lot about, it's police power, and it's not police. It has nothing to do with police. What that means is there are certain laws that give certain taxing entities the power to tax that particular person's property. We have several of them. So like a city is a taxing entity, a county services like county hospitals, that's a taxing entity. And schools are the biggest taxing entity. In everyone's district, no matter where you are, the biggest bulk of tax dollars goes towards a school district. And so you are elected to, the tax rate is what you said, and then also to oversee the budget, because that's what the taxing entity's job responsibilities are. It is not to hire people within the district. It's not to get in the middle of discipline problems and like all that stuff. It's you have very, very straightforward things, but it's complicated in a lot of ways because you're also bound by certain laws. You are overseen by a larger government, by the state. You don't just work independently. You don't get to just do arbitrary things. Like, there's things that you are required to follow. And so it's very complicated, and it's not something that everybody needs to know all the ins and outs of and the details of. But one thing to be really aware of if you're a citizen is that y'all are still bound by certain responsibilities. You don't have ultimate authority over every single thing.
Right, we don't. For us, as far as the district, the district is bound by TEA, which is a state organization that is bound by the legislator. The legislators that sit and make decisions on how school's going to be funded, how programs are going to be done. And it's interesting to watch, especially this year because we are in a session year, to see, and even I didn't even realize how much they determine.
Right.
So they
probably have determined a lot more in the last year than they probably have in the years past, because we were under emergency orders, which kind of gives them a little bit of different, responsibilities. And I think that's going to be a conversation for years to come.
Oh, it is.
The reach of some of these places, and because emergency orders that we've had were never intended to last this long, and all that stuff. So that affects everybody in how y'all make decisions, and it kind of forces y'all into making decisions you wouldn't have normally had to make because you're in the middle of a pandemic.
Well, and too, I think a lot of those decisions come at the request and or with a set of guidelines, right? Like when we decided to shut down school last spring, that wasn't something that the district said, we're going to do that. You know what I mean? We were told by X, Y, and Z, these are the things you need to do. And a lot of times we have to wait on decisions. We have to wait and see what the state's going to do in certain instances before we can make our decisions. The budget being a huge one. Until we know exactly how they're going to fund, which is why I've been going back and forth with all of this over the past few months. Until we know exactly what they're going to do funding wise, you can't really set your budget for the next year.
Right. And that is a conversation that we've had with a lot of other city officials. You get your numbers and then you set your budget. You get it. I'm assuming y'all get it from the county appraisal district. Correct.
The tax numbers.
So that all comes to y'all, and then y'all basically have to set a budget on that. And it's not something. I mean, you can't take a year to do it. Like, you get those numbers, and then you have a certain amount of time, and that's how you determine the budget. But y'all do set the tax rate. When we talk about a tax rate, what does that mean?
Well, it's the rate in which the district is going to tax, that particular year, right? And it's capped because of legislation that happened 2 years ago. And so we set, and actually this year it went down. That percentage rate went down, but with property taxes going up, people still felt your bottom line tax bill went up. You're paying more in taxes, even though the district tax rate went down. And so that is something that we do every year. It typically stays around the same, and now you'll see it pretty much because, it can fluctuate, but it doesn't very much. What fluctuates are people's property values.
Yeah, just a little.
And you know that more than anybody,
absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of there's a misconception in that people think the district raised their taxes, and we didn't. Property values go up.
Yeah, and y'all are just one of, I think, well, and it depends on which part of the city you live in, if you are in Tarrant or Dallas.
Right.
Because each county then has different county resources. So, like, if you lived in Dallas County, and I don't want to get too far into the details for those, I don't want to get everybody, but it's important to understand each county has different county services. So, like, if you live in Dallas, you have a Parkland is a county service, county hospital. So if you look at your tax bill, you're going to see them as a taxing entity. Tarrant County has Tarrant County College. That would be something that is a taxing entity. So they're going to be a little bit different because every city does not have the same depending on where you live. And so but you are just one of several taxing entities.
We are, but we tend to be the biggest.
Y'all are the biggest.
So that's where people, they see that and realize that the majority of their tax dollars do come to the school district.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the sense of ownership comes from. You know, a lot of people want to know why and how and where their money is going when it pertains to the district, because they feel like the biggest chunk of their fund, their money's going there.
100%. And that's also where your biggest homestead exemptions lie, because each of the taxing entities sets that too. But your school district is going to be your largest exemption. And so if you are like over 65 as an example, you're going to get a pretty large decrease in your appraised value of your home, which means that you're going to be taxed. You're still going to be taxed at the same rate. It's just going to be on a lesser amount. Wow. And so, but I think that when it comes to the district, you know, and people paying taxes, one of the biggest things is, what are we getting for our money, right? And in my opinion, and I've talked to a lot of people that are in a lot of different districts, Grand Prairie is by far the most innovative of the districts that I've seen personally. And when I go around, and I wish that people out there that don't have kids in school or maybe haven't visited some of their campuses could see the programs that this district offers for the students and what that does for the community when they graduate. So talk a little bit about, like, because Grand Prairie is school of choice, Grand Prairie ISD is school of choice. Talk about what that means.
So I think in the beginning, the reason that it was established was you saw an influx of charter schools come into the DFW area. And instead of viewing that as a bad thing, Dr. Hull, who was here at that time, said, what are we going to do to compete? How are we going to keep our kids here? It wasn't necessarily about gaining kids at that point, I don't think. It was mainly about how are we going to keep our kids in our schools. And so she created this choice. And
because our funding follows the students. Correct.
Yes.
In the state of Texas.
Yes.
And I know if anybody's paying attention to some of the national conversations about this, in other states, the funding goes to the school district specifically, right? It goes to the system, not to the student.
Right.
And that can be kind of confusing.
It can be. And I think, and that's a great point to bring up, because I do think a lot of people think that districts are funded on how many days per se. So let's say, you have a 180-day school calendar, you're getting 180 days of funding, and that's not true. You're funded on your average daily attendance, having a child in a seat on that day. And each child has an amount that they are, X amount of dollars per student per day or whatever. So, so you're right. So if a student leaves to go to a charter school, that funding leaves. And so
or to another district,
or to anywhere.
If they went to
ours, if they go anywhere. And so, on the flip side of that, though, if a school if a Arlington ISD kiddo comes to Grand Prairie ISD, Grand Prairie ISD gets that funding.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think it was more, but even beyond that, it was we know that our kids in Grand Prairie ISD are getting a good education. They're getting one of the best educations, and we want them to stay here. So how are we going to do that? So choice was created, which basically is what charter is. Charter is a choice type program. And so we said, okay, or Dr. Hull had this vision then of, let's give people a choice. So now
and charter is not private.
It is not. It is still, it's a public school, and they are funded by the state.
That's
correct.
Another thing that I think people have a misconception about.
They still, one of the big things I get asked all the time is, if I send my kid to a charter, do they have to take the STAR test? Yes, they do, because they are a public school. So, but the choice was created, and it's boomed, and we are one of the largest choice districts in the state because of it. But those choice programs give our kids so much. And I don't want to confuse people, because not every campus is a choice school. We do still have our traditional campuses where you can go and where you're zoned for that campus and you go to that school, and they may not have any programming that would be considered choice. For example, in my district where I sit, which is everything south of 20, Powell Elementary is a traditional campus.
Eisenhower
is a traditional campus. Dickinson is a Montessori academy.
I did not know that.
So, yes. So, they started 2 years ago. It was the year before I got on the board. They came and wanted to start Montessori there. So what they did is they did a phase-in approach. So that year, kindergarten started they did the Montessori program where 1 through 5 did the traditional, and they're phasing out. So right now they have K through 2 is Montessori, and 3 through 5 are still in the traditional setting. But eventually those will phase out, and it will be a full Montessori academy.
What is Montessori Academy?
So Montessori is the programming.
Mm-hmm.
It's very much teaching children. You're kind of, instead of in a traditional school where you'll have math from 9 to 10 and English from 10 to 11, you have in the Montessori Academy you almost have like a room set up with stations, and subjects will be combined. So you may have something that's math and science or something that's English and social studies, but the children get to choose what they want to do, and they'll go to a pod or a section and have things to do that pertain to a subject or something specific to that subject, and they'll work on that. And then when they're done, they're responsible for cleaning it up, putting it back up together, and then they get to go do whatever. When they're hungry, they eat. They fix their lunch. They eat a snack. It's very almost like free form, if you will.
Yeah. It's just a different learning style.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's done great. There are people who love that. It teaches children early on to be very independent, accountable for your actions, teaches them a lot of responsibility. So there's more than just the academic part to a Montessori style type.
Well, and along those same lines, all academies are not created the same. And you also actually have a charter school within the district, don't you?
We do. At Morton, we have Uplift, which is a partnership, and Dr. Hull did that to give community members or parents in our district the opportunity to put your kid into that charter program, Uplift, but still be in a public school setting.
Yeah, because it's a part of this. It's a part of the school. Doesn't it share with another campus or
Morton
no? Okay, yeah. Okay.
Which Morton used to be Lee, for everybody that's not quite
And Lee
aware.
is a huge building.
It is a big building.
Yeah, and it's a pretty cool building if you've ever been into it.
It's one of those that was really, really old, and then I think part of it burned down and they rebuilt it. And it's my father-in-law went there.
Oh yeah, my parents did too.
You know what I mean?
Everybody.
It's got a lot of history, that building does, yeah. So that's another thing that she did, was bring in. And then you've got choice, like you have the STEM Academy at Ochoa. You've got Gypsy, which is Grand Prairie Collegiate Institute. You've got there's just so many. There are
so
science
many.
academies, math academies. There's all kinds of stuff. So really, no matter what your child is interested in, we could all but guarantee, that you are going to find a school that has something. And what that does is it makes it where children are invested in learning, right? Like if you get to go to a school and they have something that you love doing day in and day out, it makes it more fun. You're more engaged. And so I think by allowing students and parents that opportunity, you see higher achievement that way.
Oh, 100%. And all kids have a different high school experience, especially in our district, because you have a school like DeBisky, for example, which is a career high school. They don't have a football team. They don't have a band. They don't have the quote-unquote traditional high school experience. But that fits so well with kids that are like really focused on something that they want to learn, how to have more skills at a specific thing, and they don't really care so much about going to a football game, and they don't really care so much about all that. And I think that's one of the things that, when you've had a traditional high school experience and you think, oh, those kids just aren't getting that same experience, and you're like, well, that was the experience you liked in high school, but that doesn't mean that every high school campus has to look the same or do the same things, because we now have 5 high schools, correct? 5?
So we have 3 high schools, but we have 5 campuses that graduate seniors.
Okay.
So and I guess it's open to interpretation. So you've got Grand Prairie High, which is a traditional high school. You've got South, it's a traditional high school. You have DeBisky, which is the career tech. You've got a graduating class that graduates from the Collegiate Institute. And you've got a graduating class that graduates from the Young Women's Leadership, which is one of the all-girl schools.
Gotcha.
But those campuses, Gypsy and YWLA, are 6 through 12 campuses.
Gotcha.
So they're not just a high school, if you will.
And Fine Arts Academy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess. Oh gosh.
I totally just forgot about that.
Principal Shell's going to not be happy I left that off. But yes, they are one of those too. But they also are a 6 through 12 campus.
Yeah, they are, and that is an amazing campus too. And that just goes to show, as a drama kid and a choir kid myself, that would have been like right up my alley.
It's an amazing campus over there. I
have never been inside.
I've had the opportunity. It's really cool, right?
It is,
because it's all artsy, which I love. Those kids that go there are super creative, and they do some really, really cool things. If you follow any of their social media, they're constantly talking about, awards and things that the kids do. There's so much good that comes out of that if you are a parent of a kid who, loves art or vocal music or drama or anything like that. That's a fantastic place.
I think now would be a good time to say that going to some of these schools, you have to have high standards for yourself. DeBisky, the Fine Arts Academy, in order to be able to continue at those schools, you have to have high academic standards as well.
You do, because those schools require you to be on an AP route. Grand Prairie Fine Arts Academy, you're going in and every single class is either going to be pre-AP or AP. You don't have the opportunity to do an on-level class. And so, yes, you do need to be academically strong. And that goes back to, not everybody can we are a school of choice. And if you are zoned for some schools, you get to go there even though they're a choice school. But like Garner and Grand Prairie Fine Arts, they aren't set up that way. So no matter if you live in that area, you still have to apply to that campus. And then if you're not in a zone for a school of choice that you want to go to, you apply. And in order to be considered, you have to have high academic standards. You have to have not had any discipline issues, and you have to have good attendance in order to qualify to go to these campuses.
Right.
So there are some restrictions, I should say, but really they're not, because our kids tend to perform high and have no problem with that.
Well, I would say, looking at, I wouldn't even call it a restriction. I would say these are kids that really want to go to that school.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is where they want to be.
Yeah.
And so...
it's competitive.
Yeah, a lot of times, I from people I've talked to, them going to that school is not the parents deciding. That's where the kid really wants to go. And if you've been to like a Garner, and there's another Fine Arts Academy on the other side of town.
WIT.
If you wanted to get into that school, that's something that you've been thinking about.
Yep.
You have been in a pathway that's the next place.
Right.
And you know that if you want to keep doing what you want to do, you're still going to be able. Now, that does not mean that there's not drama programs at South and Grand Prairie High School.
No, they have great programs there.
I was telling you before we started talking, when we did my 20-year high school reunion, because I graduated from South, we went on a tour, and I was like, I felt cheated as a senior. I'm like, we all were walking around going, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we were in Earl Tom Kill Theater, which... special place in my heart. Actually, you don't know, or you've never have met Earl Tom.
No, I didn't.
So Earl Tom Kill was a legend in our town, and he'd been around for forever. And he was choir director at Grand Prairie High School. Well, I actually took singing lessons from Earl Tom Kill and when I was in high school, and that's where we did all of our drama, is in the Earl Tom Kill Theater. But for those that have been in South, that theater is really tiny and it's very old, or it was even when I was there.
I remember it.
Oh yeah.
My nieces and nephew. My niece was in drama, and so she was there when it got changed. So she got to see the original theater, and then her senior year, I believe, had the new one. So I remember the theater, and the change is dramatic, right?
Oh, I mean, we went into that new theater, and I was just shocked. I mean, it is like a profession. I mean, it's like you're going to like a professional theater. And the other thing that we got to see was the vet tech program and the facility that they get. I mean, it's basically a veterinary clinic.
It is.
It's bigger than a veterinary. I mean, it's
some
huge.
of them in town, right?
Yeah. And then also the sports. I think it was sports tech or sports medicine.
Sports medicine program.
Yeah. So they have just I mean, these campuses now, I wish people could see the inside. And I've told a couple other trustees that I need to go do some tour, like video touring, because they're astonishingly amazing. I can't even, it's not like you've just refurbished a campus and now it doesn't have, it's not crumbling.
Right.
These are facilities that are like top of the line. And a lot of this comes from federal grants or bonds. Talk about that a little bit.
So some of the infrastructure, the facility stuff you'll see that we have now was because of bonds done in the past. I want to say Grand Prairie High probably is the most dramatic part of the last. I mean, there was a lot of things in the last bond, but the new tower at Grand Prairie High. If you haven't had a chance to go over there, it's amazing.
Wow.
But some of the programming is done through grants. For example, Adams, the data and technology portion of their school was done through a federal grant. So it's not, because a lot of times there's not money in the budget just to implement some grand program somewhere, right? So we have a really, really good team of people at the Ed Center who look for those opportunities. Principals look for those opportunities.
Which is what happened with Adams.
Right.
I had an opportunity that y'all always do a realtor breakfast every year. Yep. And so every year it's at a different place. That's how I got to tour the Grand Prairie High School, the medical. I mean, I didn't even get to go around the whole campus. It took our entire time just to go through the medical side. And it's a nursing program.
It is. When
I say it's amazing, they've got dummies isn't even the right word. It's like it is. I mean, really, I guess they're dummies.
They're like robot.
But that's not even doing them justice.
It's not really.
Like they've got all these sensors inside that can simulate a variety of medical emergencies or medical situations, and one of them gives birth, and one of them like a heart attack. I mean, a variety of things. And by the time these kids graduate from high school, they have an associate's degree in nursing. With actual medical training.
Sure.
Like this is not just I'm going to go take my basics at Tarrant County College and get this is like I've actually worked on something that has given me medical practice.
Yes, and they still do clinicals.
Yes.
I mean, they're in a hospital setting too, and they come out of that program with 2 years in to where they just have to go to school. And mind you, the district's paid for that, right? So it's not at any expense to the student or the family, and they come out and only have 2 years to go for their bachelor's of nursing, which is huge. The opportunities that they can have out of that are greater than anything, and you're only responsible for 2 years.
And nursing is one of those things, and I've known nurses that have gone through school. Nursing is one of those things that if you're going to get your clinicals, you have to literally work 8 hours a day doing your clinicals, and then also go to school and also support yourself financially because you don't get paid. Right. So if you're going through nursing, either you have to have somebody that's supporting you financially, like a spouse or maybe parents, or you kind of don't, if you have kids already, it's hard to go do that because you have, so for these kids to be able to graduate with that type of training is, as 18-year-olds, is amazing.
Right? Because normally you think, okay, you graduate 17, 18, you go to college and you're spending 4 years, if depending on what you do, could be longer, to get to the point where our kids are getting in 2 years. Like they're coming out with 2 years under their belt. It's a big deal, especially in a program where if they wanted to, they could go straight to work. I mean, they could take their licensing test for an LVN, and you can go to work in a hospital right then if that's what they chose to do at no cost to them, at all. Same with our early college kids. We have an early college high school built within both Grand Prairie and South Grand Prairie high schools, and those kids come out, they actually graduate their associate's degree before they graduate high school.
I interviewed one of the girls that was one of the officers for drill team, and she was graduating 2 times.
Yeah.
And I mean, I said, what? And she goes, yeah, I'm graduating from high school and getting my associates. And I was like, that is unbelievable. I mean, and she just talks about it like it's no big deal. And I'm like, do you understand how much like that, like, but I saw in her that she had drive. She was still going to go to college after she graduated. But she, that was her pathway. I'm sure she's going to go finish her college. Mm-hmm. But you made a good point. These kids can graduate from high school and become employable immediately. Yep. And I'm not talking employable like you make $5 an hour waiting tables. And no, don't get me wrong, I was a waitress for, a long time. But if I'd have had that back then, that was amazing. These kids are graduating making very good money because of the skills that they're getting while they're in school. Yep. And so kind of back to Adams, and we'll talk a little bit about more of the programs, but like back to Adams, that principal saw in his students that there was a lot of kids interested in technology. Mm-hmm. I mean, kids are interested in technology anyway.
It's a huge thing right now.
And we need coders, and we need, people that can design websites. And I mean, it goes even further than that. This mm-hmm. isn't just like a surface level, like, I'm going to teach you how to do a graphic design. It's like, this is, the equipment that school got because of this grant that this principal found. He said, look, I found this grant and I saw that my students would really enjoy this. And he got it, and it transformed his entire school. Yep. And he got amazing equipment, and now all of his kids that go to that school are getting trained to do something amazing that they didn't even have an opportunity to do before.
Right.
And South has an amazing technology program.
Mm-hmm. Grand Prairie High does as well.
They do?
Mm-hmm. And so they're going to build on it, right? So mm-hmm. that's a middle school, Adams a middle school, and so you're going to have the opportunity to go to a campus for high school that you're going to build on that skill and come out with knowledge that most college seniors don't have, right? So, again, it's preparing them for a trade if that's what they want to mm-hmm. do, but also if they want to go to college and continue, they get to do that too. You know what I mean? I really feel like the programs in the district make a very well-rounded
100%. 100%.
Right? We're preparing you for college and career. Or we're preparing you in a trade like the Holtcat program mm-hmm. or the Trio Electric program.
Talk about that for a second.
So Grand Prairie just actually had their first group of students commit, and they had a big commitment ceremony. And it's electrician pathway, and it's a program where they partner with Trio Electric, and they got their hard hats and their vest, and they made a commitment. Once they're through, they're going to go to work for Trio Electric.
Wow.
And so that's job security. That's a guarantee right there. There's a lot of programs that do that. And like you stated earlier, you're not going and making minimum wage. Mm-mm. You're making significant money coming out of high school. Uh-huh. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, the amount of internships the district mm-hmm. Has that we've partnered with the community in. We got to hear from 2 CTE students that are at Gypsy, I believe, and I hope I'm not wrong on that, at the last board meeting, that both are at Lockheed Martin interning. And they're paid internships.
Oh, wow.
We've got paid, and we've got some that aren't, but we do have paid internships. These kids are 16-year-olds making money, doing what they love to do, knowing this is going to gain them experience, right? Because how many of us come out of college and trying to find that first job, and everybody's like, oh, you don't have enough experience, these kids are coming out with a ton of experience. That's not going to be an issue. But they're prepared for any situation that they want to take on.
Absolutely.
Even military. If you decide that you want to go serve in the military, we're preparing you for that. There's things that we're doing that you will be prepared to go do that.
First responders, we have a firefighting academy. Police?
Yeah. Yes. So law.
Okay.
There is, the big program is at Grand Prairie High. There is a smaller program at South. You can still do that. Actually, my oldest, it's a junior, wants to do forensics.
Wow.
When she graduates. That's what she's going to go to college for. So she has taken law classes at South to prepare her. Actually, this year, her science is a forensic science class.
Wow.
It's crazy. The things that she's learning it's going to be amazing. You
know,
and too, for a mama, I appreciate it because it gives the kids the opportunity to go, this is what I want to do, or you know what, maybe I didn't I thought I wanted to do it, but now that I've kind of had this opportunity to do a class, I don't really want to do that. And they can change their mind in high school, right? In college, it's a little more difficult.
Yeah.
But
having not spent $800 on account,
you know
like
I mean?
1 hour. Yeah.
So as a parent, I appreciate that they're saying, okay, in 8th grade, we're all going to take this test that kind of tells you you're going to answer these series of questions, and it's going to spit out what you're most compatible with. And it gives kids, it's not saying you have to do that, but it gives the kids the idea of, oh, I could be interested in that. Or, oh, I am interested in that. I didn't realize that this could be the job associated with what I'm interested in. And then going into high school, they have the opportunity to kind of do a deeper dive into those things and really see if they want them or like them. And then some of those have programs that they graduate with a certificate, like the dental hygienist program at GPISD.
Did not know we had that.
Oh my gosh. Dr. Bicknell partners, I mean, like, it is amazing. And those kids come out certified to be a dental hygienist.
That is another thing that's very time consuming and requires a lot of hours.
And they've got an awesome facility over there, like the nursing one. It's a great deal at DeBisky.
So I think the last time that I toured DeBisky, I went to the bistro. So, okay, so here's the thing about the community that community members need to know. These are all places, well, some of them are places you can actually use for services. So, like, the bistro at DeBisky has when I say professional kitchen, it's like amazing.
It is.
And these kids that go to that culinary program, they do catering for events. They run a real restaurant that you can go eat at during lunchtime. And I don't think it's been open this whole time. I don't know if it's open now.
It's not because of COVID.
But I did eat there, and this is like 5-star quality food that you get for like $10. And I'm like, this is amazing. Yeah. You can go eat there. They have a cosmetology program. Let's see, they have a mechanics. They do car mechanics.
You can go get your oil changed.
You can go get your oil changed.
Yeah,
they have a printing shop.
Yep.
The vet tech program, I'm sure people can take their animals.
You can.
That's at South. Now, and then I've heard, and I have not been able to see this, that South has a greenhouse.
They do. And honestly, I wouldn't know that, except I have a really good friend whose son is in the horticulture pathway, and they actually built a greenhouse in their backyard to help, because he's actually got a little small business now where he supplies microgreens, which I didn't even know what these were, but they're like the little greens that fancy restaurants use in salads and stuff, but he supplies them to restaurants in Dallas.
Oh my gosh.
And it's all because of what he has learned at South going through that program. But yes, they do. They do have a greenhouse there with lots of stuff.
But imagine what we're doing. I mean, when I think about these kids graduating, and this is something I talked to one of the city council members about, I said, these are kids that are graduating with making livable wages. I mean, and we want them to stay here.
Sure.
Because
that's the goal.
Because now we have all of these trained, skilled people that we want to stay in town. So it's like, I can imagine that we're graduating kids in a way that they're going to add to their community. So when we go back to like thinking about taxes as an example, and when you think about where your tax dollars are going, you're not just funding a facility, you're funding the future. You are. In Grand Prairie, you really are. And you are funding the next generation of people that's going to live in your town and take care of your town. And I think that that's a huge deal. And I don't know that a lot of people really give that a lot of thought if you don't have, or if you don't have kids in the district yet, right. You haven't had an opportunity to know, or if it has been a while since your children have graduated.
Absolutely.
Because it's totally different than when I went to school.
Oh, it is.
Now, that's not to say that at South they still don't have band and the regular things you can do all that stuff. I mean, you can still go and, if college is where you're going to go, there's a whole other thing for that too. And right. You can go and you can be in the band, you can play sports. These kids, the sports programs we have here. I mean, what was it? The girls basketball team?
Yes, at South. Yeah.
Man,
you know what? They've been. If you want,
this sounds like a commercial for GPISD, and that's straight not the reason I had you on here. But
okay.
I get really excited talking about this because I think it's amazing.
I do too, because I think there is a lot of information that not everybody knows, and it like you said, it's if you don't have a kid in school, or it's been a while since you've had a kid in school, or you're new to the city, you don't know about all the great things. And my two kids wanted the traditional setting. I love all the programs. I could have tried to convince them to do any and everything because I think there's so much good to do, but they wanted, my oldest was a cheerleader. To be a cheerleader, you're going to a traditional school that has a football team, you know, with a band. She's also in band. And so she wanted that, you know, experience, which we gave her, and she's thrived, and she loves South. She absolutely loves it. Now, you know, all of my nieces and nephews have graduated from there, and she's seen that, and she kind of wanted to be in the same spot they were. My youngest started out in a traditional elementary, moved over to Garner to do fine arts. While she was there, she learned to play the violin. She learned to shoot archery.
Oh, archery's another one. I totally forgot about that.
Loves it. So now she didn't go to Grand Prairie Fine Arts because it's not, you know, drama or anything like that. She went to Reagan, which is a traditional middle school, but it offers archery. And they have an archery program there. So she wanted to do that. But she did orchestra her first year, and then she thought, you know what, I want to do something different. I want to learn to play another instrument. So now she's in band, and she's learned to play the clarinet. I mean, you're still getting rich programming in traditional type settings, right? She's in 8th grade. She's going to South because South has the archery program. She loves that. And we just got back yesterday from Belton, where both South and Grand Prairie, or Reagan, shot in the state archery tournament. They both qualified for state and shot, and you're probably going to see, there was 3 teams, I think, for Reagan, and there's 1 or 2 teams at South, but you'll see them qualify for nationals.
That's amazing.
It's a great program, and the good thing about that is it's all-inclusive. You've got a lot of kiddos that, for whatever reason, health reasons, whatever, they can't be in a traditional PE class, but they can do archery because it's under NASP, which is a program that's all-inclusive. I mean, I've seen a deaf person shoot. I've seen a blind girl shoot archery.
Really?
Yes. I've seen people who don't have all limbs. That program is amazing in that they make sure anybody and everybody, no matter what, can come and participate.
Wow.
And so it's grown. So whenever Addie started it in 4th grade at Garner, it was, you know, maybe 30 kids. Her 6th grade year at Reagan, it was a class. So it takes place of your PE class. It's actually a 3rd period class you get to go to. And it was about 40 kids. Now it's over 100 kids. She's got 2 class periods. I mean, it is just thrived over there.
You know, that's a good point too. And here's another thing I don't think people realize. You can actually compete, not even just in sports programs. I know that Dr. Hull did at one of the Realtor Breakfasts, she was talking about, they did a competition for motorcycle repair or something like that, where it was like it was some restorative or putting together something.
I know they've done tractors that way. I'm not sure about a motorcycle.
Okay.
As far as competition, I know that they DeBisky has for FFA they do the tractor restoration. They have restored an El Camino, and they may have done
That's what it was.
An El Camino.
Yes.
Okay. I was going to say, but I don't know if that was for a competition or not, but I do know the tractor is, and they still, I mean, those kiddos are still getting recognized for doing that.
Right.
So yes, you still get to compete even if you're not in a traditional sport or program.
Which I think is amazing, because that was something that a lot of kids didn't get an opportunity to do when I was at South. If you weren't really good at, and because South was always so big and Grand Prairie was too, you know, if you weren't the best of the best at football, basketball, you know, volleyball or choir or whatever, you really didn't have a whole lot of I mean, there were things that you could do, but not nearly like they have now. And that's just, kids need that, you know. I mean, that's just, we don't even have to say it's a given. Kids need to be recognized when they do something really well. And the beauty of having programs like this is that kids can find something that they really, really like to do and that they're really interested in and that they get recognized for.
Well, not to mention it looks great on a transcript.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Well, that's what led me to that conversation, is that Dr. Hull was telling us about a girl that had won. Whatever they did, it was a competition, and it was something that had to do with mechanical engineering.
Okay.
And she got hired on by, was it Vought maybe? Lockheed Martin maybe? I mean, they offered her, like, because of the recognition she was getting, she got hired on with a 6-figure salary because they need people that can work on helicopters and on, you know, all these planes and all these things. That is unreal. Yeah. That is unreal. And I that's just such an amazing thing. But I know we only have a couple minutes left. So, like, I guess just take a couple seconds and talk about maybe some of the challenges that the district faces with the choice. I think one of the biggest ones that I'm talking about is like busing would be a good example. So when you put your kids, and this is true for charter too, when you decide to go to like a charter school, you have to be responsible to take them and pick them up.
Okay, so yes, so if you are out of district and you want your child to go to a Grand Prairie ISD school, you will be responsible for getting them to and from school.
So you still, when you live in a district, when you live and your school is in that district, there's still the same traditional programs or traditional services that are provided to those students. So they still get a bus opportunity. They still get those types of things, correct?
Sometimes, yes. I don't want to say that that's true for all,
right? Because
there could be some instances where if you are on one side of town and you're in a school on the other side of town, that you may not have the opportunity to get a bus there.
Right.
But I think if it can be done, if there is a way that you can get to a school that has a bus that goes to a school, they're going to let you ride the bus.
Yeah. But like if my district is Eisenhower,
okay,
I can get a bus for I guess if you're within a certain, if you're in that district.
Yeah, you can. Now, for example, if you're zoned for Eisenhower Elementary and your kid is applied and got into Garner, you're probably going to need to get them over there.
Right. That was one of the biggest things for me that I was like, okay, what does that mean? And so what ended up happening was some of the people that lived, because I lived on the north side of town, we were zoned for Eisenhower.
Okay.
And some of the parents had kids in Garner. So we would, like, you could carpool. Yeah. You could have those kinds of, different types of things. But that would be like, but kids that go to those schools still get those same. So I don't want to say like you've innovated all the traditional stuff out of it. Like you still get services that a regular district would offer.
But also there comes. I guess the best way to say it is yes, but when you decide not to go to a school that you're zoned for, there comes more responsibility on you, right, as a parent to get your child where they need to go. But really, that's it.
Right.
That's right. They're going to get the same. Everything else. Transportation is the biggest issue. Yeah. And that's just logistics. It's just logistics.
This is a big deal too, because as a real estate agent, I will say when you're in a traditional district that does not have school of choice options and you just have to go to your local zone, you have to live in a house that's in that zone.
You do.
And so it limits your opportunity. When you live in Grand Prairie, you can literally live in any part of town that you want to and have the opportunity to go to different, which I think is a big deal. It's just more opportunity. It's just more choice.
That's why it's thrived, right? That's why it's thrived. I think that's why we just had a demographer report at the last board meeting, and he constantly tells us, y'all are the only district that isn't stagnant, if you will. Like, you're seeing increase. You may lose traditional districts are losing students and they're not gaining anything back, right? We lose students to whatever it is, whether they move or a charter or homeschool, whatever the situation is, but we gain more back from other districts. And Mansfield and Arlington tend to be the ones that are heavier because they're border us, right? We don't have that issue in attendance. And I think it's because those two districts, now Mansfield has some choice schools that they have implemented over the years, but you still don't have a district like Grand Prairie that has an abundance.
Yeah.
And that still brings kiddos and parents and families here, whether that's they decide to move into the city or they just decide to send their kiddo.
Yeah.
And two, you've also got to remember the whole city of Grand Prairie isn't Grand Prairie ISD.
Right.
You've got Arlington ISD within our city. You've got Mansfield ISD within our city. So you can still live in Grand Prairie and be zoned for a Mansfield school, but want to come into a Grand Prairie school.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I think the choice has been one of the reasons we have done as well as we've done.
Yeah.
And why we have great success stories here because of it.
100%.
Success stories.
Yes, great success stories. I completely agree. But I just want to thank you for running. School board is not an easy thing to be elected to. It is
It is. It's I joke because I keep saying since I've been elected, I haven't had a normal year, right? So we had to hire a superintendent the first year, which was completely out of my, I was like a lost child during that. I was learning so much, and I did learn so much, but not having gone through that, and most of the people that were on the board at that time hadn't. I think we had 2 people that had ever done it before. So that was kind of, and it consumed the whole year. And then we got through with that, and it was like, okay, we're going to have a normal year, and then COVID hits. And, it's all been about how do we respond here, and how do you're literally building a plane while you're flying it during this pandemic.
Yeah.
And so I'm hopeful that next year, and it'll be my last year, I'm going to have a senior in high school. It is a campaign year. It's going to be crazy with all of that. But I'm just hoping that we get to have a normal year, and that we get to talk about what we want to do next. Let's talk about, the things that we get elected to do, and the ideas that we have, or that the district wants to talk about, because really those have all been put on the back burner because we're just trying to make sure kids are safe.
I'm very excited for that too. And I think that this is another something else that should be said. Other states have not gone back to school yet.
Yeah, there's several.
There are a lot of states, not a lot, I would say, there's several states that refuse to go back, or that refuse to put their kids back in school. And Texas has had the opportunity for kids to be back face-to-face since August. And the parents had a choice about whether they wanted to send their kids back face-to-face. And I, as a parent, appreciate that, because I know that there's other parents in other states that do not have that opportunity.
Right.
And giving them that opportunity to go back and at least try to have some type of normalcy. And, I did a tour around my daughter's school right around Christmas, because I wanted people out there that don't have kids in school to realize this year for kids, while it's been challenging, has still been a school year that they've still been able to do things at. So I don't want people to think they're sitting in cubicles just having to sit there and be still and not move around. They're still getting a school experience, even if they have to wear masks, even if they've had to have partitions, even if things have had to be a little bit changed. And that is something I appreciate so much. And having teachers that are willing to go back and willing to take those kids. I mean, this is just a shout out to every single teacher. I can't say enough how much I appreciate that we have employees of the district, because you see that not all teachers in this country are acting like that. There are some, but we have teachers that have gone back and have given these kids, an experience, and next year hopefully it'll be different. Have y'all had an increase as the year's gone on of more face-to-face students that have chosen to go back?
Yes, it's gone up each quarter. So
because every grading period they have a choice. Right?
That's where you can come in and out, and the face-to-face has gone up each one, and we're over 50% back face-to-face.
That's great.
Right now. But to your point about our teachers, you were exactly right. They can. There's no words that can do justice to what they've gone through, what they've done in our schools this year. And I talk to a lot of teachers. I've got friends that are teachers, and I know the struggles. I see it in my kiddo when they were at home. But those teachers, the things that they are doing to still make sure those kids learn and master content and understand is amazing. They have adapted in ways that I never even could have imagined. And there's no amount of praise that would do what they've done justice. But I am thankful, because it's scary being a teacher, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, knowing you were going to have to come back into a school and potentially expose yourself to a deadly disease. I can't imagine what that felt like. But they did, right? They stepped up and they said, we're going to do this, and we're going to drop my fear at the door, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to be strong for those kids, because we had to have kids. There were kids that they had to have a place to go.
Right.
It was their only meal for the day.
Right.
Parents worked, they were essential workers and had to have somewhere for their children to go. So
internet. Internet is still an issue.
And that's a whole nother thing, which they're debating down in Austin, and I think you're going to see a lot of stuff come out of this session about that.
Realtors the Realtor organization for the state of Texas we just had our legislative Realtor week with legislators, and internet was one of the things that we we pushed for.
Right.
Not universal internet.
Which is broadband.
Yes, yeah. And making sure that people have access to it.
Because that was one of the things we discovered. And thank goodness the technology department and the board prior to me had the foresight to think we got to get technology to kiddos' hands, because there were districts that didn't have anything. And for the spring of last year, did nothing because they didn't have the equipment to be able to do. Every child had an iPad. So you could go home. Now, not every child had Wi-Fi, but we remedied that over the summer too. And if you needed it, you were able to get a hotspot through the district to get set up. So, that I'm thankful for, because it did give our children the opportunity to continue their education instead of just be at a standstill. But it's still, there are so many things that came to light because of the pandemic that you're going to see change statewide. And one of those is teachers, right? One of those is how hard they work and what they do. And let's really have a hard conversation about that.
I 100% agree.
And we appreciate our teachers more than anybody. And like I said, I mean, it's been a hard year. It's been a hard year on them, and we understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen teachers just push and push and push through obstacles just to get those kids. Because, it's like a district like this, you can't, if you have all these things that the kids can work with their hands to do, having them at home doesn't really help them do any of those things.
Right.
You can't, because when I say that there's a technology program, it goes beyond kids having their iPads. These are massive equipment and pieces and systems that they have in these facilities. You can't work on a dummy in the nursing program. You can't do all that stuff. So being able to do that is just amazing.
Well, and our schools have kept all that safe, right? So if your child was face-to-face, we have done so much stuff to ensure that they still get to do those things and they're done safely, right? And there's social distancing, and there's everybody's wearing a mask. And one of the things that we've prided ourselves on is implementing all of those things very early. No school spread, right? Yes, there are cases. Yes, people, but they've gotten it outside of the school,
right?
And that's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
It's a big deal, and so you still, granted, there are those that want their children home virtually still, and that's understandable. But for those that choose to send their kids back face to face, they're in a safe environment. Choice
is a big deal to me. Like having the choice for a parent to decide what's best for their family, and and also understanding and a lot of people probably are going, okay, how far behind are our kids going to be next year and all that. So there is a concern with like making sure kids are still, and this is countrywide,
it is
worldwide. This isn't just a district,
right.
Grand Prairie ISD thing. But just making sure that, do want choice, want to encourage, people to, if students are struggling, that kind of thing. So you have to keep up with that. And, there's other districts where they're missing kids that haven't even gone back the whole time.
And that's every district too.
It is.
A lot of them you'll find are pre-K and K. Because those are the two that aren't, right, by law, you don't have to send your kid to kindergarten. They can start in first grade. And as parents, if I have a pre-K kiddo and we're in the middle of a pandemic and I don't have to send my child into an environment that I don't know a whole lot about, I'm not going to. I don't blame them. But you're right. The majority of those kids are that we've lost, but also statewide, are pre-K and K. You've also seen a drop in juniors, seniors. In that those kids are having to go to work to support a family, potentially, right? So our enrollment is down. Everybody's enrollment is down.
Yeah.
And so you're trying to make it to where you can show things are done safely to where those kids will want to come back.
Right.
It's going to create an interesting scenario next year.
Yeah.
Because right now the state's debating on whether they want to have a virtual option that will be funded like a face-to-face option is. Right now they do. Districts are funded for virtual kids because of the pandemic. But moving forward, when things are back to a normal state, if you will, they're debating whether they want to do that or not. I believe, from what I'm hearing, is if they do, it's going to be a very, very scaled down version. You're going to have some pretty specific requirements in order to qualify to go virtually. Bottom line, kids learn better when they're in front of a teacher in a classroom.
Especially the littler kids.
Right. So when we do get back to that, it'll be interesting to see, because
I agree.
Your kindergarten kids who didn't start kindergarten probably aren't going to come into first grade. They're going to start kindergarten. You're going to see this huge influx in kindergarten.
I agree, yeah.
It's also been brought up in Austin that you could have parents that want to essentially redshirt their kid. So like you would redshirt in a sport, you get an extra year. You have a third grader that goes, they didn't really learn a whole lot this year. We're going to have them repeat third grade again and do a year over. And that's a decision the parents can make.
Really?
So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how all that plays out.
Yeah.
I think, obviously, attendance will increase because these kids didn't disappear.
Right.
They're here.
Right.
They just aren't in school.
Right.
And I know districts all across the state, and if you've read anything or kept up with the news, you're seeing it really in Dallas ISD because they're highlighting that. You've got teachers knocking on doors. You've got administrations going out and trying to find, especially your high school age kids that just have decided to, guess what, I'm not doing anything.
Right.
But they're still considered enrolled in school. So it's hard. And there has been a gap. I mean, I think we're looking at 3.5 months statewide behind in math and reading. Reading is I think you'll see bigger gains to catch up. Math's going to be hard.
Fourth grade math. Just fourth grade math in and of itself. Yeah. Like when she brings home some of that stuff, and I'm going to call my dad out, and well, we're all there. Like, it's like when I was a kid, it was we just had to learn the multiplication tables, and now there's all kinds of new ways. And I think about that Cosby Show episode where Cliff had to learn new math, him and Vanessa, and that's how I feel sometimes when I'm trying to. That is one of the reasons why my daughter went back face to face.
Yes.
Because I live with 2 retired educators, and I still was like, no, I can't. But yeah, I think the math thing and the reading, and hopefully it won't be as bad as. I mean, I can only imagine some of these other states that they haven't gone back face to face at all. I can't. How do you teach a first grader how to write? How do you teach a first grader how to write on an iPad?
Well, but even more than that do the parents have the time to do that?
Right.
Because they're working a job too.
Because it is not easy turning in all that stuff.
No.
I mean, I had to do it last year, and I was like, this is for the birds. I can't do this myself.
Right.
It's too much.
I mean, we converted in our house last spring when we realized we weren't coming back. We converted, my husband had an office because he worked from home. But I needed a space where I could have an office. My kids could have, both girls had space with their laptops to be wherever. So we converted our formal dining, completely gutted it, and redid it into a big 4-space person space office. And the kids were doing school in there last spring, and between the Zooms and the assignments and my husband taking calls and me doing what I needed, it was like, I don't know how people that work two parents working 2 full-time jobs, but have smaller children. Mine are self-sufficient, right? They have elementary age kids that they have to be there with them and teach. I can't imagine. I can't imagine. And, I think that's why you did see the numbers increase. I think because a lot of those parents finally were like, okay, either one of 2 things happened. Either they realized they couldn't do it and their kids were struggling and they needed to be back in school, or they themselves were called back into an office somewhere. Right? Their work at home time was over, and they had to put their children somewhere. Right. And school's that place. Right. I wish all kids would come back. I think in our district, I think it's safe. I think we could do it. I'm thankful, so thankful that our teachers are getting vaccinated now. I know a lot of them, that was a big deal. And those that choose to do that have the opportunity. And
Monday it goes down to 18.
I saw that.
I think I think Monday is the day.
It's like all day, like the 29th, whenever that is, So, that's a big deal. Having teachers be vaccinated kind of brings a comfort level to them.
Of course.
It's more a level of comfort. But, so I think next year I'm hopeful that we'll start back everybody in the classrooms. There could potentially be some still social distancing happening depending on where we are. I'm hoping it's without a mask, but who knows at this point. But just to kind of get back to, I had a high school principal yesterday tell me, and it's Larry Jones, he probably doesn't mind me sharing this. This is his first year at South. And he goes, I want everybody back so I can bond with my kiddos. Like,
right.
He was at the archery tournament, and a lot of those archery kiddos are virtual. And he said, I was walking up to him going, I know you don't know me, but I'm your principal, kind of a thing. And they were like, yeah, we've seen you in a video.
I mean, this is teachers too, though.
It is.
They have kids. They have kids in their class that they've never even met face to face.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
seen because they don't have their screen on, right? It just
right.
says their name.
Well, and the other thing too is like, what about these kindergarten kids that are starting back? I wish, my hope, and who knows how it's going to be. Parents haven't been able to go into the campuses and like they normally would. So you're dropping your kindergartner off, and you're like, okay, bye. Right. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go into my daughter's campus, and just like tell people. I know it can be so scary because you don't know what to expect.
Right.
But first of all, these kids are enjoying their experience. Second of all, it's a lot more normal than you think it is. But it's also a lot different than you think it is. They're still wearing masks.
Right.
They're still, they still have partitions and, all that stuff. But it's not, there's things you might see from on the national news of experiences that they're having in other states. That is not how Texas is. Texas is, we're not having kids in like a tent as they're playing their instrument. I saw a video of the girls basketball team. And the cheerleaders are on one side and the drill team's on the other, and they're in their masks that match their outfits, of course, because that's just. And then the girls are coming out and everything, and I'm like, that made me so happy.
Yeah.
Everything about that video.
Sure, and band. So my daughter's in band, and I was like, okay, you've got all these like tubas and horns that are like spitting and stuff. No, there are like little. It almost kind of reminds me of like a knee-high pantyhose back in the day, but it's this little like. Stretchable nylon thing that fits over the bell of whatever horn it is so that it catches all that.
Oh my
right?
gosh.
So they can still march. They can still sit in the stands while social distance, but they still played. They still got to enjoy band. You just figured out how to do it, right?
That's
Everybody
amazing.
just figured out how to do it. Same with, all the other stuff. I mean, there's so many things. Everybody adapted.
Yeah.
Everybody at the end of the day adapted so that you could have the majority of what you needed to do. And I know that we've got, parents and students that are upset about proms and that sort of thing. But that's when you're talking about that's different because you're talking about a gathering versus, you can't there's no way you're going to socially distance prom, right? So, but we also have parent groups that have adapted to that and gone out and done things to make sure that kiddos have the experience, especially those seniors, because last year and this year it was hard. And I know one of the things last year was graduation, and all of us collectively as a board were like, we've got to do something for graduation. Yeah. So the Globe Life Field opportunity was perfect. And we're going to get to do that again this year. Yeah. It's a great venue. The kids love it. Yeah. It's an amazing opportunity.
Oh, and this year it'll be open.
It will.
I mean, I'm just like,
not to mention it holds a lot more people, so the whole, ticket thing
it
will be easier to manage.
Well, because last year that was some of the people, when you have the baseball team was supposed to have played in that for the first year. Yep. That was some of the parents probably in all the communities' first chance to go inside and see the inside, which is so cool.
Yeah, because if you didn't get to tour it on one of the tours you got to go see it. And it is. It's a beautiful place. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, I hope we're back normal. Mm-hmm. But we're going to be okay.
I think we're
going to be okay.
And I, just as something, just as for parents, and we'll kind of close, but last year, I'm a real estate agent, and we had a lot of effects from COVID for restrictions as far as where we could show houses. Sure. We had a lot of people that probably opted not to put their house on the market. Mm-hmm. We're seeing the ramifications of that with low housing inventory, and people are starting to kind of do it again. So I was kind of surprised in the beginning. I quarantined for 30 days with my daughter. And then in April, I got a call that somebody wanted to go see a house, somebody I didn't know, which kind of took me by surprise because I was like, this is an interesting time to go do that. And I remember having a lot of anxiety. So I identified with a lot of teachers when they had to go back because I knew it terrified me. And I'm a person that's pretty risk averse. So I can withstand a lot more risk in taking risks that a lot more people probably can't take. And I know that I was very terrified about it. I had myself covered literally from head to toe. I had my cowboy boots on that I could spray with Lysol.
Sure.
I had my windbreaker. I mean, I didn't know.
At that point, right?
I had my gloves. I had everything on, and I'd walk into the house, throw everything into the washing machine, and then I'd get in the shower. And one day I did that 3 times to show 3 different people houses. Wow. But as time went on, you realize it's not as terrifying as you think that it is. You still need to, but you still obviously need to be careful and all those things. But that initial jump into what is this going to be like? And I think that people are still experiencing that. There's probably people that have now been experiencing it for a long time. And I hope that by next year, with everything happening, that we can get back into that normalcy. And, seeing people at a Ranger game and seeing people at, the water parks and having all these things open again, it gives me hope. And, seeing the kids and how excited they're all, it makes my heart so happy.
Oh, I know. I definitely think we're at a point where we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
I agree. I agree.
Hopefully things will continue to go.
Yeah.
But as far as the district, we're going to keep on trucking and keep doing good things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it. Thank you for talking with me today.
Yeah, for sure. I know how much it takes. School board is a time consuming animal if you run. So
I tend to probably take on more of it just because I'm so interested in it. So
you're new.
True.
Right.
True. But I'm any kind of training I can get, I will do. I follow all the stuff that goes on on session years. And so it's fun though to me, and it's rewarding, and I like it. And
I get a lot of information from you.
Well,
whenever you post stuff.
Yeah, I and I try to use social media. It can kind of be a not so nice place, and I try and use it for the good, and especially my school board page. I literally, it's going to be district stuff that comes out, or for instance, if I'm talking with or going down to Austin, which I plan to do in the next few weeks, you'll hear about that.
That's awesome.
So awesome. It's fun, and I enjoy the job. It's been really
well
good, so.
Thank you for doing it, and thank you for taking on that responsibility, and thank you for being here today.
Thanks, this was fun. I appreciate it.